And just like that, we're live. What's going on, Walter?
Oh, just chilling out, buddy. How you doing?
Pretty good. So I know this is new for you. At this point, everyone will start popping on in here. So we'll give them a minute or two. Hey, when you guys are coming on into the room, go ahead and pop in the chat room, say hello, let us know where you're tuning in from. And in the
Yeah,
meantime, me and Walter will just keep chatting.
yeah. We'll just do.
There's
No
always a
chat.
little delay, so it's always funny because I'm always like, "Yeah, hey everyone, come on in," and then I have to wait like 30 seconds before I see anyone. So then you get worried that no one's here. But
Oh man, it's like, are you out there, guys? Yeah, yeah.
see, there's the chat room. Melissa's here. Hey, what's up, Melissa? Barbara, Sandy.
Hershey, Pennsylvania. I've been there.
I haven't. I haven't been to Pennsylvania. Well,
Yeah,
any of
look
these
at
places
that.
really.
Wow, I've been to a lot of these places. This is great. Wow, very cool.
Where's the San Diego? It seems like lately we get one person from San Diego other than us.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Right. The lone soldier.
Yeah.
Oh,
What's
wow,
going on,
cool.
everyone? I hope you guys are getting excited. I got Walter here, who's pretty excited. We've put some work in together. I put him up to task to come up with 5 awesome tricks for Photoshop, and he already did that. So we can't wait to sort of share those with you today. Look at that one. Melissa says you don't
I
want to come.
know. Don't come to Indiana.
Well, all right then. I guess we'll just. There we go. Meg says come to Maine. It's gorgeous. I
A
bet.
vacation state, yeah. You guys can come to San Diego too. What was it cold today? It was like 78 degrees and
No, man, it was a little cold. It was like 65 out here.
oh, I know. We start putting on like sweaters and thermals, huh? When it drops below like 72, yeah, 70.
Exactly. All right, cool. Well, let's go and get started. So everyone, thank you guys so much for taking a little bit of time out of your day or nights. For most of you, it's in the evening, and we appreciate you guys being here. And I think this is going to be a really fun one. So my favorite part about all these things is, of course, being able to bring on experts in the field doing some really cool things. And that way, at the end, you guys can actually have your chance to interact and get some of your specific questions answered. So, in the meantime, let me go and introduce to you Walter. So, Walter, I've known Walter now for how long, man? Geez, it's probably been about 5 years.
Yeah, it's been a while now. Yeah. Yeah, it has been about 5 years.
And this is actually, I mean, the topic obviously is Photoshop, but I think this is a good sort of what's the word? There's a good lesson to be learned here. So Walter and I, guess what? We both are San Diego wedding photographers. So one thing that we talk about a lot is obviously competition. Not he and I, but me and a lot of you, Coles Click members and everyone. And if you've already gone through the marketing course, and if not, you should. But you'll see my section on networking. And to me, Walter's actually, I think, the king of networking. So he can definitely chime in. If you have a question at the end, we can probably he'd be a good person to ask. But you know, between Melissa, who I know you guys are familiar with in the group, and Walter, and even Laura, these are all close friends of mine who literally are competitors. And isn't that funny, Walter? But I mean, it's a common
Yeah,
misconception, I think, that it's easy to feel worried that someone else, you can't be friends or be homies with someone who is a direct competitor. But it's been absolutely great for us because you and I share referrals all the time.
absolutely.
um, and it's just that's how you actually have grown your business to be so successful here in saturated San Diego is
Yeah.
your networking abilities, not just with people like myself, but also your vendors and your coordinators and all that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in this like saturated world of photography, I mean, I know just reaching out to different people and befriending people. And I mean, even, when we talk, I know me and you have talked about business things or ideas for, networking or marketing. I know I've ran ideas past you and we just all kind of help each other out. And I've always been a strong believer, that the cream of India of any industry will rise to the top. The hard workers, you put in your time, you're going to rise up to the top, and you need those people around you, especially, when you become so busy, you can give other people weddings or you need referrals or what have you. So I'm a big believer in that, going out there, talking to people, reaching out, keeping your relationships relevant as well. So, yeah.
Sweet. And I agree with all what you said. And, you said one thing that was really cool, and that was the cream rises to the top. Um, and I never heard that before, but I love that. And I think this is sort of almost a good segue into what we're going to talk about tonight, Photoshop, because um, Photoshop is a tool that I think many people either underutilize or don't even would consider themselves very proficient in it.
Sure.
And I've been very upfront about that with myself being a Lightroom guy. And for my purposes, Lightroom has served me just fine. Not to say Photoshop wouldn't help me, because I have no doubt that, I am learning all these tools is absolutely important, especially to be that cream of the crop and rise up. But what I was going to say is, like, for you, you do so much commercial work, and that's why I've brought you on to teach that Photoshop course, and that's why I look at you as this Photoshop guru, because this is one of I know it's a funny word, but this is one of those tools in your toolbox
Mhm.
that you're doing things that a lot of the sort of playing field of photographers aren't doing. So I guess this is sort of a slight sort of message and of encouragement for anyone here who's maybe going to be watching tonight, and a lot of the stuff that Walter might show you here might be over your head, and that's okay. um, and if so, that's why we have the Photoshop beginner course available for you in Cole's Click. But just know that these are sort of the tools, or this is just one way that you can sort of have another tool in your pocket that you can start producing work that's a little bit more unique and sort of put you ahead of the rest of the playing field, right, Walter?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think, especially these days with photography and digital photography, to be where, for me, especially with the commercial work, the Photoshop's going to take me to that level. I mean, even now, Lightroom has gotten so great. I mean, in the last couple of years, I mean, geez, Lightroom's gone leaps and bounds. But I feel with especially my commercial stuff, especially some of the really, really cool stuff I want to do in wedding photography, I need Photoshop to take that last 15, 10, 15, 20% of that photo. And
Yeah.
I think people that learn Photoshop, especially accompanied with Lightroom, are just going to be so far ahead of the game when it comes to people that just, maybe just know one application, whether it's Aperture or Lightroom or something. So I'm a huge fan, obviously, of learning Photoshop. I'll tell you guys this real quick. I mean, I didn't start off wanting to learn Photoshop. I learned Photoshop back in 1999. Yeah. In Santa Barbara when I was in a dorm room, and I was just messing around. I was kind of baptized by the fire. And, it was a lot of trial and error. But now, I mean, thankfully, we have resources, the Click and everything that you can go to and learn information. And you have all these people that you can go to now to learn it. So it's a great thing.
Cool. Well, I think we're about ready to jump into these 5 tricks. And first, I just want to give you a thank you for producing these 5 tricks and being able to join me here. I know
Yeah.
everyone absolutely appreciates it, and they've loved everyone who has taken your course so far or is involved in it. It's been nothing but great feedback. So, everyone, we're going to go ahead and show you these 5 tricks that Walter prepared. And the one thing that I'm going to tell you right now is I've asked Walter to pre-record this segment, okay? And the reason why is Photoshop, it's just a little bit it's hard to see some of the controls, it's so small.
Yeah.
And by pre-recording it, Walter's been able to zoom in for you guys and really give you guys a better user or a viewer experience.
Yeah.
So what that means is what you're going to see right now is what Walter prepared for you guys yesterday. I believe it's 20 minutes. This is going to be following him on these 5 tricks of his. And then as soon as it's done, you're going to see our faces again, and we're going to take all of your guys' questions. So for about 15 minutes. So without further ado, give me just 1 second, and Walter and I will be back once we are done with the little 5 tricks tutorial. All right, guys, give me just 1 second, and we will see you guys in a bit.
Hey everybody, Wally Wilson here, and today on this webinar we are going to be talking about 5 Photoshop tricks designed to really help you out with your photography. All right, so these are 5 tricks that I came up with that I use all the time, and like I said, these
tricks just save me a lot of time, and hopefully you guys don't know about any of this stuff and you can do some really neat things. Okay, so our first trick today is going to be how to select and change colors in Photoshop. So I took this photo in the studio and we took it against some kind of funny, kind of wacky, purpley seamless here. But let's say we don't like that color. Let's say we want to do something different, a different color, or we want to, we want to change it. I mean, this could apply for anything. This could apply for, changing the color of a dress. This could apply for changing, product. I mean, this happens all the time in the product world where we'll take a photo and it's a prototype of something, a cell phone or something, some sort of product, and they're changing the color. And now instead of reshooting the whole campaign, we have to just change the color in Photoshop. So this is how you do that. And like I said, this can apply to so many different things, from backgrounds like we're going to do today to just colors of, clothes or products or whatever. So let's start this off. We're going to go ahead and we're going to start this webinar off here, and let's go down, and I want you guys to select a new layer. We have our new layer selected, and go up here to select and come down here to color range. Okay, so now you guys are going to see that we have this color range box with a bunch of different stuff going on in here. The only things we're going to be concentrating on right now is this slider called fuzziness, which is kind of cool. Photoshop's giving us a cool name here, right? And then we're going to concentrate on these little eyedroppers right here. Okay, so we know that we want our background selected. Let's just go ahead and just slide around this fuzziness thing. So what this is kind of doing is Photoshop's just kind of guessing on what we want selected, what we want. So this slider is just kind of giving us a range here. But what we're going to do to select it is we're actually going to come down here to this eyedropper right here. So go ahead and select this first eyedropper on the left, and I want you guys to just go in here and select that background. Okay, so now we have the background selected, and remember, white shows, black hides, right? So all we're doing is really creating a mask based out of colors, right? A color mask. All right, so let's go in here and let's adjust this fuzziness because we still have some stuff showing. Ultimately, what we want is whatever color that we're trying to select, we want it all white, and we want everything else masked out to black, right? So let's bring down our fuzziness, and that's going to kind of bring down everything else. So now we have a nice silhouette of what we don't want the color changed, right? Or what colors we don't want changed. And let's go in here. And so we have a pretty good selection, but you can see it's still kind of, like there's still got some tone stuff in here. We want this completely white because we want it all selected, right? So go down here to this little eyedropper with the plus on it, and start coming in here and start clicking some other areas that still have a little bit of black in them, okay? So just like that, and I think we're about good now. Yeah, so now we have our complete background masked, right? We have it selected, and we have the girl here completely masked out, all in black. Perfect, right? Again, you guys you can play with this. This I've been doing this for a long time, but you guys might have to just kind of come in here and finesse your way through. But just remember, use this eyedropper here to make your first selection. Kind of play with the fuzziness bar. You want whatever. Remember, you want her masked out. You want whatever you don't want selected masked out, all in black. Okay. All right. Got it. Hope that's not too confusing. Let's push OK. Okay, so now you can see we have kind of a little path here. All of our little marching dance are selected here. We have an inverse selection, which means everything around her is selected. All right, so let's go down here, and I want you guys to go to the adjustment layers, and I want you to go to hue and saturation. Perfect. Now you guys will see that we have a little hue and saturations palette up here, but more importantly down here, since we had a selection in selective color, now it's made a nice little mask for us when we pushed hue saturation. Remember, because there's always a mask associated to every adjustment layer. All right, so go back up here to the hue and saturation slider, and now what we can do is just change this hue, and it's going to change our background. All right, so you can see if we want something like teal and that indigo, or we can bring it down here to something really crazy like a nice pink or red or orange, or whatever, right? So this is how we change colors in Photoshop just by selecting that color range. Now the nice thing about this is it's also keeping all of our tonality in the color. You can see here's the nice little shadow cast from her. You can see some of like, the little divots and stuff in our seamless, which is cool. If we wanted to get rid of those later, we could, but I like them in there right now. So that's how we do it. So you can even adjust the saturation, bring that down. You can do the lightness here. You can do really whatever you want in here. So that's how you adjust color in Photoshop, you guys. Play around with that. Get in there. Remember, it's under here in the select color range, and you're creating a mask, and then essentially what you're doing is you're using the hue and saturation tool to just change that hue and to do different colors in there. Okay. All right. Well, I hope you guys have learned some stuff on this trick. We have 4 more, so stay tuned, and we're going to get to those right now. All right, you guys, I am back for this second trick for Photoshop here. Now, this one is going to be controlling luminosity in a photo. So this is a really fun, kind of cool trick that I was passed on a couple years ago, but that I love and I use it so much. All right, so this is a photo that I shot for an athletic company. This was shot, up in the Sierra Nevada mountains. This is a place called Donner Point, and this was about 30 miles away from Lake Tahoe, up in this gorgeous area above Truckee in the Sierra Nevada mountains. So this was shot midday, so there's some love that had to go into this photo. But I'm going to show you how to control the luminosity in each color channel, which is really, really huge. And what I want to do in here, I just want to bring a little more light and luminosity into these greens right here, into this hillside, just a little more so I can get a tiny more detail, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to click over here onto the adjustment layers, and I want you guys to bring up the black and white, okay? So obviously the black and white controls or the black and white adjustment layer turns your image black and white, and then you can adjust each color channel on your black and white image, which that's great. I'm especially doing black and white photography. You can really get in here and kind of tweak it around. It's an awesome tool. But there's also a really other cool tool within this one. So just on its own, it would just be a black and white adjustment tool for each color channel. But when you go down here and switch your blending mode from normal and go all the way down to luminosity, now what you can do is create or control each one of these color channels on their own for the photo. So you can see here's the yellows kind of pushing it, and you can really push it really far out. You can bring it back down, so it's just affecting that color channel. So if I want to get in here, with these trees and some of this hillside and all this green, and I want to just kind of make it a little more not vibrant, but a little more illuminated, and just give it kind of that push. I can come in here, push a little bit of that yellow, and then I come down here and push some of that green, and then you can see as I turn off the layer, turn on and off, that it really does make a nice big difference in that landscape. It's really nice right there. So on the flip too, if you want to bring down a certain channel, like let's say we want to make this blue sky a little more blue, because there's a lot of blue up here, bring down that blue slider, and you can see it's really bringing down those blues right there too, and making it less luminant. So since each adjustment layer has a mask associated with it, just click on the mask, select your paint bucket, and switch your color to black. Dump your paint on there, and now what you're going to do, obviously just take your brush and with a white paint, and now you can bring back those adjustments you've made. So I'm going to just paint this hillside here, bring back all that nice adjustments we did here. Beautiful. And then I'm going to even come up here to the sky in that area that we brought down the luminosity of those blues. Bring that right in there. All right, so now we can see that our image looks a lot better. I have like a little more dynamic range in there. That hillside looks really nice in there. Those pine trees kind of pop and everything. A little more just from that luminosity. So this is a great tool. I use this tool on skin too, so you can use a couple channels at one time, push the luminosity on skin, skies, any sort of color that you want to really be selective and just bring out that color, or a combination of a couple works out really well And remember, remember to change your blending mode here to luminosity. It's the last one down on the selection. Okay. All right, you guys. I hope you got something out of this tip trick for Photoshop. We are on to our next one here in a second, so stay tuned. All right, now we are on to our third tip trick of the day. And now we are going to talk about making a really nice black and white photo in Photoshop really quickly, and then using a couple different adjustment layers to do that, but just real quick. So I shot a campaign. It was for a watch company called Nixon, and this is one of the photos I got. But I just want to come in here and just really quickly make some black and white photos, assuming that I don't have any actions or anything set up. I just want to make a couple different ones, and I want to be able to control them as well. So what we're going to do is I want you guys to come down here to our adjustment layers, and I want you to select Channel Mixer right there. Okay, so Channel Mixer controls the RGB values of your image right here. But when you click right here on monochromatic, what it does is it changes your photo, obviously, to black and white, but now you can control these channels within that image, but on a black and white scale. So if you guys notice here that once we change it, it's at the total value of this image with these RGBs, with this RGB value, these sliders, is 100%. So when you start switching around, you want to make sure that you keep your image right around 100% when you start doing this. So you could kind of change the red if you want to bring the red channel up, give that a little more luminosity, bring the greens down, you can do that, adjust these blues, and kind of bring it in here. You can see we're right around 99, so that could be pretty cool right there. Okay, the constant is just an overall value, and you can use that to kind of bring down or bring up the total brightness of your image, right? So right now we have it kind of where I want it. Nice little black and white. There's still not enough contrast in it for me, but let's see here. What we can do is go over here, and we're gonna go on our adjustment layers, and let's go over to curves. All right, so we're gonna do an adjustment layer for curves. So now we have a curve up. So now I like this. I think overall we have some nice tonality in this photo, but I want a little more contrast in here. So what we're gonna do, and we learned this in the Photoshop course for those of you who have taken that, is we can just do a little S curve in here. So bring these values up right here so they're a little brighter, and then bring this part of the curve down a little bit more right here. Okay, so you can see what we've done essentially is we've made the whites whiter and the darks darker. Let me show you what that looked like beforehand. Right, so we can see now this looks like a kind of cool photo to me. There's a little more contrast in here. There's a little more separation between the whites and black. So ultimately we went from taking a photo that was a color photo right here to bringing it in and adding our channel mixer, switching monochromatic, and then adjusting some of the sliders to where we want it, and then adding like a nice little S curve, and we got like a nice little black and white photo. All right, so you can do this to anything. This works really, really nice when you have skin involved, because then you can kind of pick, on the RGB scale, the red, especially like the red, channel, how kind of illuminant you want the skin and everything as well. So, all right, perfect. So you guys just learned how to make a black and white photo using the channel mixer button very quickly in Photoshop, and then you can add a nice little curve to it to give it a little bit of oomph, a little bit more whiter and darks darker. All right, perfect. Stay tuned for this next tip/trick. We'll be right back. All right, guys, we are here with our fourth tip/trick for Photoshop. And this one is a really important one, and this is something that we all battle. I know I do every time I take a headshot or a portrait, especially when it's a tighter shot or a portrait. But stray hairs, right? Flyaway hairs, they're just the worst. I have a really quick way that we can handle these and take care of them. And not spend a lot of time cloning them out or anything like that. So real quick, I have this portrait. It's a nice portrait. It's a 3-light setup I did for some headshots for a local company. This girl's hair looks great, but even as like well groomed as the hair is, there's still some flyaways up here which are just kind of bothering me. You see those right there kind of in the back of her head and stuff. So what we want to do is I want to get rid of these things really fast without sitting in here and cloning and doing a bunch of crazy stuff, right? So what we're going to do is come over to your background layer, you guys. And I want you to just duplicate that layer, okay? And that's Command J if you have a Mac, and Control J, I believe, if you have a Windows-based computer. So let's do that. With this layer, your new layer selected, I want you guys to go up here and go to Filter, go right down here to blur, and I want you guys to come to Gaussian blur right here. It's the fourth one down. All right, so Gaussian blur comes up, and you can see down here that there is a little slider right here. And what we want to do, you guys, is I want you to bring this up right to about where you can't, where you can't see those flyaway hairs anymore, right? So kind of bring it up, and for me, it's right around 20.4 pixels. All right, so that's kind of when that hair starts going away. And I'm going to show you what we're going to do. Okay, so that's looking pretty good right now. So just adjust the slider. There's also a little preview window down here where you guys can really kind of bring it up here, and then you can zoom in to your little preview area, and you can see like in here the hairs are gone around that. They've blurred out enough. Okay, go ahead and push OK. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to take a mask and mask this layer. So go down here, select your mask, and then go to a paint bucket with black paint selected and dump that paint all over that mask and mask it out, all right? So now let's go up to our area where we have those flyaway hairs. Select a nice soft brush. Perfect. And I'm gonna bring my brush size up a little bit here. Yeah, that's good. About 250 pixels wide. And then go ahead and select white paint so we can reveal that mask. And what you guys can just do is just literally just paint these flyaways away. Now since this, since it's kind of just blurring it out, it's blurring it out with the image. And it's just kind of blurring it so much that you can't even see it anymore. So go around and blur it out nice and good. Just get rid of those flyaway hairs. You have some more down here, and we're just gonna do that just like that. Make sure not to blur too much of the hair in there, but just the stuff that is bothering you, and get in here, and you can just go like that. And see, now what we have is an image, and you can see up here our flyaway hairs are gone, right? Just blends right back into the image, which is a really fast and easy way for us to fix those flyaway hairs, and that's it. And we're not sitting there like cloning or using a spot healing tool or anything like that. So that's our fourth tip, you guys. All about saving time and making you more efficient in Photoshop. I hope you got something out of this one, and stay tuned. I got the fifth tip coming right up for you. All right, guys, we are here, and we have our fifth and final tip/trick for this webinar. And for the last one, it's going to be exporting to the web. And this is so crucial because, I see this all the time where people, they do all this work in Photoshop, and then they upload their image, and it's, it wasn't meant, it's not in the right color mode or color space for the internet. It just looks funky. And it's not, ultimately, it's not what you had planned it would look like on the web. Okay, so the fifth and final trick is going to be just exporting a photo to the internet for the web, for the web or portfolio, and that's what we're going to go over right now. So I do a ton of food photography, and it's so important that the colors are just spot on. This is some abalone I did for a local restaurant with quail eggs and some squash and stuff, and especially with these greens and stuff and these reds in the wood, you can get so many different color shifts in your images, especially when exporting to the web. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to show you how to just quickly export to the web, so you don't even have to worry about those color shifts or sizing or anything. Okay, so I have my image here. It's all ready to go. I did all my little adjustments, colors, retouched it all out. It's looking good. So what I want to do, you guys, I'm going to come over here to File, and I want to come down here to Export. All right. So instead of like File, Save JPEG, all that stuff, we are just going to go over here, and I want you guys to go right here, and I want you to come down here to Save for the Web Legacy. All right, Save to the Web. Click that. Now what this is going to do is it's going to set up everything so it's already optimized for the web. And now that's going to be your resolution, your color space, and even your size. Now what I always say, if you guys have like an online portfolio or anything like that, the one option there's going to be a bunch of options this window brings up, but the one option I want you guys to change on here is your image size. Now I always suggest 2,000 pixels across on the long end. Now what that means, if you have a landscape image, Now that's going to be the horizontal size of it. Okay, it's going to be the long size of the photo. Same if you had a portrait, that's going to be the height of the photo. Okay, I want 2,000 photos across is going to be a good size for anything on the web. Okay, all right. So you can see right now my image is 3791 by 5680. That's just way too big for the internet. If I'm going to put this up on my website, like I said, I'm going to go right here to this long end and I'm going to type in 2,000 pixels. And now I have a more preferably sized image for the web. All right, it's already gonna automatically just give me all these other settings for the web, so I don't even have to worry about this. This is the way to do it. So click save, and what this is gonna do, I can just save this right to my desktop, and I already have it saved on here, but I'll replace it. And that's it. And boom, it's ready for the internet. You're not having to worry about what color space or RGB or CMYK or anything like that or resolution. You just click it, select what size you want, and that's it. So like I said, you guys, I'm a big fan of around 2,000 pixels for anything you put up on your portfolio, and just make sure that you guys are using that export to the web. Okay. Well, we went over a bunch of awesome things, from changing color to fixing flyaways to exporting to the web. I truly hope you guys got something out of this, and I can't wait for the next one. And you guys have such a wonderful day. All right, take care. Bye now.
And that was pretty cool.
We're back.
Much, man. So I got all these cool things that like I'm gonna have to actually go in and start to toy around with. Oh, Wanda says this is awesome. Everyone, let us know in the chat box if you guys love those tips or those tricks, and you're planning on putting some of those things to good use. And then we'll end up going into Q&A here in just a couple minutes. I know Wanda liked it. I think Amber loved it because she says love, and I'm glad Dana was able to get it going for her. This is our little lag time going on here, I think.
That's all good.
Yeah, it is all good. We got 36 people on. There you Aaron liked it. Right on. Leslie. Awesome. Okay.
Cool.
So yes. Perfect. Okay, guys. So at this point, go ahead and let us know whatever questions you have. Certainly, yeah, Sandy, don't worry. This will be inside Cole's Click, so you can refer back to this. But the questions they can be on Photoshop, they could be on really anything. And Walter or myself will try and help you guys out. So Walter, here's the first one. First question we have, and Letitia,
right.
What Photoshop version do you recommend?
Well, now the way that Adobe does it, they pretty much make you buy the cloud service. So, which is kind of a good thing because now you're not buying like a $500-600 Photoshop program, and now you're just kind of paying a monthly subscription, which allows you to have the latest and greatest version of Photoshop all the time. So that's what I use. For years I would just upgrade as I went along, but now since there's the Adobe Cloud, I think it's just the way to go. They don't even sell Adobe on its own anymore.
And what's cool about the cloud is, many of you probably already have Lightroom. You may or may not have it on the cloud, but if you don't have this yet, you can Google this and easily find it. But Creative Cloud Photographer Package, and you get the newest version you'll always have the newest version of Photoshop and Lightroom for only $9.99 a month, which is really a steal of a deal.
Totally. Yeah.
Now, this is a good question, and hopefully you know it. Meg says she has Photoshop Elements. Does all of this translate? Are you familiar with how different, if Elements is lacking any of those features?
I've never personally used Elements. I think it's just a really kind of toned down version of Photoshop. So I would have to get back to you guys on that. I've never used it, so I'm sorry.
Yeah, Meg. Yeah, I don't know what's quicker, waiting for us or Googling it. But if you get to the point where you feel like you do outgrow Elements, I would definitely look into that photographer package. Okay. Tammy says, if you use Lightroom along with Photoshop, which program should you use to edit first? Is there one that would make the workflow a little quicker? Go ahead and walk us through a little bit of big picture, your workflow.
Yeah, absolutely. So, so first off, I bring everything into Lightroom because, you know, like I was saying earlier, I can get, you know, most of the time 70 to 80% of what I need to do done in Lightroom. And Lightroom is so good for big strings of photos, whether you guys are going out taking pictures, you know, of a kid or a wedding or whatever you're going to do. You have all these photos. I mean, I come back from weddings or a commercial shoot, and sometimes I got 5,000-6,000 files. Cole laughs because he thinks I overshoot. But yeah, so I come back from a wedding, and sometimes I have 4,000 to 5,000 files from that wedding. And you know, Lightroom is really good with dealing with mass strings of photos. So I can do big global adjustments like color balance. If I'm in one room for a long time, you know, shooting photos, you know, I can grab that whole group of photos and adjust the color balance. So I can get everything I need to do done in Lightroom most of the way. And then I can just bring in those select photos I want to further tweak into Photoshop. Now that could be photos that I'm going to use for my personal galleries that I just want to make look awesome. Or it could be something, you know, one of my clients needs done, or, you know, they need something, the color change or something altered or something composited. So for sure, always start off in Lightroom. You guys, I mean, I know most of you have a pretty good base in there, and then take it into Photoshop and just, you know, do, and then go that further, you know, that, you know, goes, you know, step. Yeah, next step. Yeah.
Sort of the icing on the cake. Really quick,
Yeah.
guys, I'm just going to put in a link where we aren't selling anything at all, but if you wanted to look at some of Walter's work, I'm going to put in his website right here. Keep the questions coming in the chat box. We'll answer them as they come on in. But yeah, I think in general, I think that's, yeah, that is the workflow that you all want. You want to sort of do the lion's share of the work to the bulk of the photos, and then head on into Photoshop for the fine tuning. All right, Leslie has a good one here. How do you recommend fixing skin tones in Photoshop? Example, baby with
jaundice.
Jaundice. I was gonna say Wandis.
Yeah, yeah. My little brother had jaundice, so I remember that. I was really young, but you know, so this is something, you know, even if it's not jaundice. Let's say you guys are shooting somewhere and there's really like that warm incandescent light. Like we've all been there. You know, hotel rooms are super, you know, notorious for this. Yeah. But you know, you can go into Photoshop and just go into selective colors or channel mixers and just adjust the hue of the skin. Now, I actually saw a really cool tutorial you did, Cole, in Lightroom about skin too. Yeah, no, I saw this once.
But it was similar to yours, yeah.
Yeah, and it was actually really cool. You guys can go in there and use those sliders down there. And this is actually, I try to take care of a lot of the skin, those hueing and color shifting issues in Lightroom, because those tools are really quick, and you can go in there, you can adjust the luminance, you can adjust the tint, and then you could even adjust the saturation. So, you know, after you fix that tint and there's too much yellow or too much orange, just slide it over to the magenta area, or, you know, get it where you need to be. And then you can even bring down the saturation and bring the luminance up. That's what I do. And I know you have a really great tutorial on that.
Thanks. Yeah. I mean, I saw, you know, I know you touched on that too. And the hue, saturation, and luminance together, whether it's Lightroom or Photoshop, can really do some magic for you. And then, you know, really in terms of actual like retouching, you know, I guess what I would recommend is, in your brain, you always want to sort of think through these things. Like you have sort of your global changes, right? So, I mean, if I were to change that hue, it's going to change predominantly the entire image worth of hue, unless you start masking in Photoshop, or unless you start using the adjustment brush in Lightroom. Yeah. So, you know, then of course you can go into the clone and heal and remove, you know, blemishes and all that kind of thing as well. So the whole point is think big picture, you know, the big tonal corrections and exposure corrections. Then you can look at sort of the skin tone as a whole, and then sort of narrow it down into the retouching, that final
any blemishes, you know, all this,
yeah,
any of that stuff. So yeah. Perfect.
Okay, so David's right. David answered Jill's question here, and I just wanted to say thanks, David. But that is absolutely correct. So Jill, what you really want to do is, you don't have to go from Lightroom, export it out, and then get into Photoshop. Actually, what you really want to do is, inside of the Lightroom Develop module, you're just going to right-click on that on the image, and you'll see Edit In. And then once as long as you're using Photoshop already, you'll be able to connect Photoshop. And you just click that, and it's going to literally take all of your adjustments you've just made into Photoshop. And then you do everything you're going to do in Photoshop, and then just hit save, and it dumps it right back into Lightroom. So
as
that,
tips. Yeah.
yeah, that's exactly how you want to do that. All right. What else do you guys got? Light crowd tonight. Sort of cozy in here.
I know, right? Oh, Amber said that she upgraded from Elements and Photoshop is much better. So there you go. So it looks
Yeah.
like
Oh, I got a question for Amber or anyone who is an Elements user. Maybe it's Meg, because Walter and I had this question earlier. Meg, if you can let us know, can you use actions? Can you use Photoshop actions in Elements, or does Elements not let you do that and you have to let us know? Because Walter is working on some actions for all of you guys that I know everyone's going to totally freak out about, and we're trying to figure out if they're going to work only in the full Photoshop program or if they will also work in Elements. If anyone knows, let us know in the chat box.
yeah.
Amber says yes. Okay, so we got multiple people. Maruso says yes. Perfect.
Okay.
Unless they're saying just yes, they're excited for the actions. Could happen.
Yeah. Maybe. Yeah. I love it. There's Photoshop. I'll try to figure it out.
Okay. Walter, do you have anything off the top of your head? Any closing words while we maybe get some trickling questions in here before we sign off for the night?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I don't think I have any closing words. I love being in that face room chat room or the Facebook
The group, yeah.
the group chat room, the group, and seeing all your guys' questions and stuff. If you guys have like something specifically for me for Photoshop, just tag me in it, and then I'll do my best to get back to you guys as soon as I can. I love answering those questions and seeing what you guys have and everything. So just tag me in the post. And then I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can. I'm super slammed in the next couple of weeks, but I make a point to try to get back to all the.
You're always slammed. Tell them how many. I want to know how many weddings, and then we're gonna do Leslie's question. I don't want to forget about Leslie, but I want you to tell everyone how many weddings you do a year and how many commercial shoots and all that craziness.
So I do about 45 to 50 weddings a year. I have 46 booked right now for this year, and then I'll probably do maybe like 30 commercial campaigns. And then just like another like probably 30 miscellaneous shoots, portrait sessions and stuff. So I
Walter
shoot
keeps busy.
a lot.
Walter keeps busy.
So I take about 50,000 pictures a month just on just different things. So replacing those shutters every 3-4 months. So
perfect. So I think David's helping Leslie out, but the question is, if you use multiple actions on one image, is it messing up the quality of the original image? Go for it, Walter. I know the answer, but
it's not specifically messing it up, but I mean, some actions are designed just to work on their own. So like if you were to like use some sort of contrast curve and then you were to use another action that is adding contrast to, but in a different way, like with levels or something, then it can be adding too much contrast. I mean, the nice thing about actions is all non-destructive editing. So if you run an action and then you run another and you're like, whoa, this looks super funky. Photoshop's designed to be non-destructive editing. So you can just, dump that layer and start over and do whatever you want to do. I mean, that's the whole point here. I mean, I've screwed up a million images, but just make sure, in Photoshop that you're duplicating that background layer. You're not specifically rendering that layer. You're using different layers. So you can always dump those layers. And, one more thing, I had a professor in photo school tell me this, and he would say, if you ever come up with something cool in Photoshop, remember to write it down. So if you guys ever do some cool stuff and you're like, wow, I took like an RGB curve and put it up, and then I took like green levels and brought it down and I did this, and you have this really cool effect, like write it down and, so you remember it, so you like it. So yeah.
And that's why I've enlisted the help of Walter to create actions for you guys. All that writing down the wild experimentations that come up with really cool stuff.
That's it.
I just have to say this, Walter. Maruso says, when I grow up, I want to be Walter. Your images are amazing.
Thank you, Marissa.
Walter was worried that people weren't going to enjoy the video or anything. And I said, don't worry, man. You're awesome.
I'm glad you guys liked it.
Yeah.
And those are things you guys can do, for your own photos and, just make them look good. And if you guys apply any of these action or, anything that you've learned to your own photos, tag me in them too. I'd love to see what you guys come up with in the group too. Okay.
Wanda has a good one that I'd like to answer, which is, do most people use both Photoshop and Lightroom or just one? Is it better to learn both when starting out? What do you think? I have my opinion, but I'd love to know your answer.
So I learned Photoshop way before I learned Lightroom. But I'll tell you now, but being where Lightroom is now, I would recommend to anyone learning Lightroom first and then learning Photoshop. And the reason is because, like we talked about before, is you can do so much and get your photos to where they need to be in Lightroom and then do those finishing touches in Photoshop now. So I would, and a lot of people do use them together. Commercial guys, a lot of them will use Lightroom as well. Sometimes, we'll use Capture One, another commercial tether program, and then just use Photoshop. But now with the capability of Lightroom, people are using Lightroom, especially in the commercial world.
Yeah, and the only thing I was going to add on is I think that question really can also be it's sort of specific to what your goal is, right? Because I mean, to look at myself. So Walter he does lots of weddings, as he said, sometimes 5,000 images or whatever. But then he also does commercial work. And a commercial photographer, when he's doing a campaign for Nike or Jack in the Box or whoever it is, that is obviously something that Photoshop is an absolute must. You just simply aren't able to accomplish what you need with only Lightroom. Whereas for many engagement or family portraits, I mean, the lion's share of our work we can get done in only Lightroom. So I guess the answer would be you absolutely need to be proficient in Lightroom. And then depending on your trade, you also may have to also be proficient in Photoshop.
Yeah.
Example, if you're doing a lot of retouching on portraits, even many of you newborn photographers, that there is a lot of, especially if you're doing composite images or just that sort of fine-tune retouching, then you also will want to, learn Photoshop.
Yeah, absolutely.
Amber says, how long does it take you to process your images from a wedding?
#goals. So I have a couple different computers in my office here. So once I edit all my photos up, I'll build a Lightroom catalog onto my final export, and then I'll export them out on another computer. So I'm not using that computer to process all that, and I can keep working on other things, and I can use that one to upload as well to the web, to my galleries. But normally, I don't know what the exact question is, but normally it takes me about 10 to 15 hours to edit a full wedding, to cull and edit too. So
yeah. Wendell, Photoshop, it's definitely a little bit different, but Walter, as you can see, he's a great instructor. And if you haven't done it yet, make sure to take the Photoshop course that you have available inside the Click, because it's a great one, and he really walks you through it. All right, everyone, we are going to sign off. Walter, thank you again.
Yeah, of course.
It's always a pleasure with you. And I appreciate you taking your day to be here and help out everyone in the Click. If you guys do have follow-up questions, feel free. Walter gave you the thumbs up to go ahead, and he wants to see your photos. He wants to see your progress, and he wants to help you as best as he can. So everyone, they're all saying thanks, Walter. And
thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So we will talk to you all soon. Have a good night. Bye.
Take care. Bye.